All right, so for this one, he has a beast boss with Follow Me Lads, another beast boss, Ghazghkull, Thraka, triple war bosses, two 20-man units of Beast Snagga boys. Whoa, that's what I'm talking about, boys. I've said it multiple times in that video that I alluded to as well when I talked about the changes that were to come. I said, now that Beast Snagga boys have dropped under 100 points, there's a chance you bring them in 20-man units, you bring them around Ghaz, and you have these crazy anti-monster missiles all over the field that if you don't have AOC and a 2-up armor save, these guys are blending you to pieces in War Horde. He has 2 of these dynamic missiles, but he doesn't have them in actually any he doesn't have them in any kill rigs, right? Because they can't. The hunter rig sucks, so he just went for battle wagons, and kill rigs can't hold 20. 2 trucks, 2 battle wagons, both with zap guns and a hard case. I think zap guns just worth it because it does more damage potential and a quick dice roll. 1 Gretchen unit, 2 mega Nobz with twin kill saws, 3 5-man units of Nobz, and then 2 units of Storm Boys. And the Nobz had power claws. They should have power claws at least. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. And let's take a look at his path to victory. So I don't actually have notes, so this one will go a little bit faster because I don't know. And also let me point out where this was. Sorry, I should have pulled out. Oh, it was in New York, though. Well, that wasn't very wise of me. Let me pretend I didn't do that. All right, so then we go into his first matchup with this Astra Militarum. We have Death Corps Marshal, primary psyker, tank commander, tank commander. Tank commanders are cool because now they give themselves orders. Like we said earlier, the psychers give a 4-up invulnerable shooting, and they give a 5-4-up feel no pain to mortal wounds. Then we have Catachans, a Cadian shock trooper unit, another Catachan unit, another Catachan unit. Okay, so he has 5 Catachan units, a Death Corps Creed, 2 Death Corps Creed units, and then a Catachan unit. Sorry, guys, tongue twisted there. A Basilisk, Earthshaker Carriage Battery, a Rogel Dorn, a pair of Rogel Dorns, 2 Tempesta Scion units, and a Caladius Assassin. So this one doesn't have potency that we've seen in some Astra Militarum lists that are slowly starting to go towards, I'm going to bring a bunch of Catachans, get in your face, maybe some tanks, maybe some horses behind that, and then drop a bunch of deep striking units to devastate you with shooting. We're not seeing that right now. This is one of the little bit older of archetypes. Doesn't have all the screens to keep you off him if you're an orc player. But you do got to be aware of the devastation because the Rogel Dorns are not anything to joke at with even your battle wagons. Of course, the tank commanders give themselves to orders means they can devastate you as well. Yeah, someday the chopper will rise, right? When GW gives incentive for why they could. You can give me in chat what you think the big choppers would need to be worth taking over a power claw. So then we have Chaos Space Marines. We have a Chaos Lord. Oh, these guys are what? Veterans of the Long War. So their version of like Oath, I believe. So then we have a Chaos Lord, Cypher. Cypher is cool. He makes you pay the additional CP when you're in range of him. That's really potent. That's cool for them. Fabius Bio. Fabius Bio can blank damage. He gives the rune an additional toughness, and he can rise from the dead. And then we have Horon Blackheart, which he's pretty much just like a deep strike, I believe, like missiling jumping in unit. So this is really thematic. He ended up going with like Veterans of the Long War, and he brought actual veterans. He has a Cultist Mob, Legionnaires, 2 Chaos Rhinos, a biker unit. This biker unit can come up on and off the field, kind of like the Leeds Voltan one. It's kind of cool. 3 Predator Destructors, all with auto cannons for that just volume of shots with multiple damage, and they get more AP. They're pretty cheap for 140 points. A big brick of Chosen, a small unit of Chosen, 2 units of Obliterators. Be aware of the Obliterators. They do have short range, but they can choose to do indirect and pop stuff like Truck very reliably. I guess 2 guys couldn't do it really reliably, at least not unless they were like in a shooting detachment or given shooting buffs and like an aura. Let's say they're next to a Hellbrute or something, and then they can get more rerolls. But in this detachment, maybe not. Maybe in Long War they could. But that's neither here or there. If they do have good shooting, they do have possible to do indirect once per game, and they have just straight up on fire. They also don't die really easily to fighting. Then we have 2 units of Noise Marines. I think it's cool that they're allied. I think it's kind of cool that they're allied, right? So yeah, this seems more like a little bit of a thematic list, but I still like to see it. Then we go into his third game, which are Grey Knights. So we have Wielders of the Flame. Oh, that doesn't mean anything. I don't know why I read that. So we have a Brotherhood Librarian, a Grandmaster with the Sigil, and then Kaldor Drago, a 5-man unit of Terminators, 3 units of Strike Marines, 3 Dread Knights, and then a big brick of Paladins. So this is definitely not an easy one to deal with. This was actually his third game where he ended up losing this one. So let me show you something that I feel like you should know, is that Paladins are something I personally think that more Grey Knight players will slowly start jumping into. The fact that you can ingress these guys 3 inches away from people is devastating, right? It's really, really hard to screen. Even if it's a 10-man unit, you can actually find a way to get these guys where you need them to be. They're -1 to wound, but the really big annoying thing is if you're an orc player is that they did miss the demos, that if you move within 9 inches of them, they can either do a reactive move or they can go back in a deep strike. Means it's really hard to get an engagement range with. And these guys have good volume of shooting. They can ignore modifiers when they're led by the character as well. Because I think one of the characters gives them that, which I'm not sure which one, but typically you put them on there. And then they help benefit the Dread Knight, because this Paladin squad is going to take a lot to invest to kill them. They can have that multiple OC. They can get a 2 OC with their banner guy. And like I said, they're hard to actually get engaged with, while the rest of the Dread Knights fill up the field. And then Strike Marines can just move up and around, scoring, go up and down later in the game if you want, sticky objective, stuff like that. So this list is something that is harder to interact with and deal with than you would expect. Having maybe, like I said before, having a bunch of kill rigs, you can at least shoot rigs at them, but you can't reliably kill them. And the one thing that the Grey Knights don't do is that they can't really kill wagons and kill rigs that effectively, but they can choose where they interact with everything else and kill your scoring units. They can score secret missions kind of well. Like I said, if the list is well built, which in my opinion, a well-built Grey Knight list is a bunch of paladins, not a bunch of paladins, a brick of paladins usually, and a bunch of Dread Knights, I think that sort of list has gives orcs a hard time unless they're playing a particular archetype. Otherwise, the rest of their list can kind of just jump around, shoot. They can put paladins in your way and selectively charge stuff or selectively shoot things, and then when you try to react to get into combat with anything, they run away. And because it's a small amount of units and most of them want to shoot, they can kind of choose where they play so they don't interact with you. So it's really, really annoying. So no shame in there. If you're playing against a really good Grey Knight player, he knows how to take advantage of that. So then we have his 4th matchup, which was against Adeptus Mechanicus. So we have the Rad Zone Corps. They're actually really not that bad, but they're a little bit more niche, right? Because how often do you see Astra Militarum? Adeptus Mechanicus. And shout out to the chat. They're pretty much just saying that if Big Choppas had like 4 attacks or 4 attacks maybe, or maybe innately hit on 2s, that you would bring them. Or if they had twin linked, twin link would be interesting, right? -1 AP is just an issue. We're just tired of having all -1 AP, right? But yeah, it would take a lot to consider. So we have Belisarius Call, 2 marshals, 2 manipulus, two techno archaeologists, 1, 2, 3 rangers, 2 vanguards, 2 dune riders, 2 cataphract breachers, 1 sterilizer, 2 Cerberus Raiders, and 2 Infiltrators. So this is what you should expect when you run into AdMech, of just a lot of little bodies. These guys can take up the field, especially with those Rad Corps. Cataphract Breachers can be spiked to shoot better with Belisarius Cole. I do think there's more devastating shooting in Adeptus Mechanicus list. I don't think they have it on here, the vehicle, but they have something like a Devastator kind of vehicle that they have. They can just have a huge volume, multi-damage profiles and volume. That can be quite annoying. The Cerberus Raiders getting in the way of move blocking. Yeah, running into orcs, and all of these little things. You really can just run this kind of list over. It takes certain amount of bodies, which I don't think the stat necessarily has, with just enough of these rangers. Everything else is pretty soft. It's hard to say. I just don't think Adeptus Mechanicus have the same tools that something like Adeptus Astra Militarum does to really offset orcs. They do have like anti-infantry 4+ weapons and volume of fire, so they can kill certain archetypes, like if you have a bunch of grots and stuff like that. But I really don't know, because I don't have reps into them yet, if this really gives you that much of a hard time. I'm going to assume not as much as the AdMech player would typically hope. Jasper got 84.1 there. And then last but not least, we have World Eaters. So World Eaters, like I always say, if you're playing War Horde, World Eaters are a much easier matchup. If you're playing Bully Boys, it's still a pretty decent matchup. And then anything outside of that, they can be kind of difficult because their speed, their punching potential, their staging potential, and the fact that you're kind of meeting them on one phase usually. So we have Angron, the Lord on Juggernaut, and the Master of Indirect Combat with the Master of Execution and Berserker Glaive. So of course he gets fight first, then he wants to be stuck on some Corn Berserker so he can kind of blood surge into you. The World Juggernauts are there so he can go alongside those 8-bound. 2 Jackals for sticky objective. 1 Rhino for that Master of Indirect Combat. 3 8-bound has 3-man units. I really like that. They have auras of -1. Reroll 1s to wound for 6 inches. Really nice for staging. I think they punch really decent. Well, I don't think you need a lot of bricks of 8-bound. 1 big brick of 8-bound from the Exalted is cool. a chaos spawn unit, and then a carnivore. It's one of those things. You know, carnivores are right if you're gonna bring them. Like, let's just say you're gonna ingress them in. I'm almost more inclined to bring like a Mauler Fiend, but then he really only goes off if you can blood something, so you don't have any shooting on this list. World Eaters are just a little bit too expensive right now, where they're like right on the cusp where certain matchups, if I can missile to you and beat you up, it's cool. But for orcs, you know, we can fight on death, and we can actually kind of overcome these things with good volume. If you're bringing Ghaz and Beast Snagga boys and stuff like that, you're going to tear through Angron. So as we can see here, he has a beast boss, 2 beast bosses, and 2 big bricks, 20 boys, and then Ghaz. So propping Unbridled Carnage here, and you're going to choose through Ghaz when it's his, Angron when it's his time to actually go into you, and then you can kind of just fight the rest of the list too. Plus you have wagons, so he can't like pop the wagons and then take everything out with shooting. You do have to be aware, of course, of getting popped, right? And then something tagging you after it pops and consolidates into you and can't kill you. But that's where it's kind of like, well, 20 Snagga boys are still 20 Snagga boys, and they're still re-rolling the hit. And the beast boss is still there. He can't get dev wounds anymore. But that's where having redundancy helps you, and having gas to come and swing into that after he does it. Just know that that's the weakness if you have battle wagons, is when someone consolidates into you after that, because you don't get your dev potential, you don't get the charge, stuff like that. And then you have 3 5-man units of Nobz, which really helps with all those 8 bounds. Those 3 little man units of 8 bounds, countercharge them with Nobz. Or if you're going into the Master of Indirect Combat and the Zerkers, you fight on death there, and it really helps you. So with that one, he ended up getting a 66-point win, because, you know, it's really like a lot of trading, and you're just trying to fight and duke it out to the death with them. If Angron ends up coming back, and, you know, becomes a more devastating and harder matchup. But love to see it. All the trucks, multiple wagons, I'm sure, and having Nobz to go there and trade out. Very elite list though, right, guys? He only has a couple missiles here to get downfield and do what he's got to do. He has a couple small war boss units, and then just Ghaz, and then 2 big bricks of Snaggas with beast bosses and wagons right next to him, stage up in the middle of the battlefield. So whoa, for Jasper Biski, because that's an awesome sort of list to have out there. I really love to see the changes and to modifications to grow with the changes to points, and having 2 big 20-man units of Beast Snagga boys on that list. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!